Smart heating systems don't have to be difficult to install. And you can save yourself money by installing your own smart heating system this winter. And in this video I'm going to show you how you can wire up, set up and use the Drayton smart heating system. Now I want to show you guys what you would experience as a DIY install if you were to pop to the shop and buy one of these or buy one online when you get home, what you need to do to get it installed and to use it. So Drayton have sent this 3-zone kit, and I've had them in a previous property and I recommended a friend of mine to get one in his property. So that's where we are now. We're now going to install this kit. This is a 3-zone kit, so that means you get 2 smart room thermostats. So he's got 2 thermostats here. We've got a replacement for both of them, one upstairs, one downstairs, and we've got the hub as well, which I'll show you in a sec. We've also got TRVs, thermostatic radiator valves, smart ones for each room. So we're going to install them as well. Now we're working in this little airing cupboard, which is extremely hot in here. The system we're installing today, we're only going to need to control the heating. The hot water is on a combi boiler, so it runs all the time. So let's say we've just arrived home from the shops, and let's have a look at what we've got in the box. So we've got 2 of these. These are the smart thermostats. They go on the wall, but they don't have to go on the wall. We'll install them in a little while. This is the hub. This is the brain of the whole thing. It replaces a standard programmer, and it's going to do all the switching for us for the heating upstairs and downstairs. Or if your heating just works on one zone for the whole house, then it would of course just control the whole home. So we're going to get this bit installed first. So the first thing we want to do with any install is to isolate the power so that we're safe to work on it. So you can see here there's a switch. This one says boiler on it. They'll normally be by your programmer or boiler. We're going to turn that off, and we can see that's turned the boiler off. This box here is called a wiring center. They always look a little bit different, but essentially they house all the wiring for the heating system, and then they direct all those wires off to different places on the heating system. So when you open one of these up, you're normally going to find lots of coloured wires like this. If the original electrician put stickers on or used a wiring centre that's labelled, it can sometimes make it easier for you as a DIYer to tell exactly what each one of these wires does. But I'm going to run through it anyway, so don't worry too much about that. The important thing to remember is that all these are different. The principles remain the same, but don't expect yours to look exactly like this, because it might not. Now, although we're fairly confident that the power's gone off to this because the boiler's gone off, we should do safe isolation, always be safe and check. And the best way to do that is use a voltage tester. So coming into our wiring center, we've got 3 pieces of 4-core cable. The bottom 2 go to stats. They go to the thermostats that are in place currently on the downstairs and upstairs heating. So you can see these live cables here. They come to these 2 light brown cables here, which tell the valves to open up. So we know that simply by those 2 cables there being on those 2 bottom cables there, we know that they control the valves, and therefore they come from the stats when each stat tells the heating to come on. So that leaves us 1 cable, this top piece here. This is a 4-core cable, and that carries a neutral, an earth, a switched live and a permanent live. And that top piece of cable there is the one that's connected to that switch there. So that's the one we need to test. So we need to put a voltage tester across the permanent live there to the neutral, and by doing this we should get no voltage. We'll check the tester by turning the switch on, and you can see there 240 volts. Turn it off again, and we can see there we've got no voltage. So we know the tester works, and we know we're safe to continue. So the system in this house has 2 wall stats, one upstairs and one downstairs. If you remember, we've got 2 zone valves underneath that wiring center. We've got the one labeled upstairs and the one labeled downstairs, and those 2 bottom cables in the wiring center go off to these things. These are programmable thermostats. Sometimes you just get the little ones that you turn up and down with the dial. Same thing really, apart from these ones are programmers. So there's a little bit of a difference here, and that goes for all homes really. You're often going to find small differences like this, but we've got 2 of these, one upstairs, one downstairs, and the first thing we need to do with the wiring is to disable those. So I'm going to pop out the batteries from the thermostat and then use my screwdriver just to unclip the thermostat from the wall. I can then access the wires to disconnect them. I can then remove the back plate from the wall as well. So that leaves the cables, and we can do some repairs later on. And we've got 2 bits of cable, this one here and the one coming out of the wall downstairs. These cables of course go to the wall stats, and we need to disconnect those cables. We can't leave them live in the wall. If we look back at the wiring center, they're the two bottom cables that come in. So the two cables that go to the stats are that one there and that one there. Like I say, easiest way to tell that is that those two switch lives control those two brown cables there that go down and tell the heating valves to open up. So we'll disconnect the two switch lives that link up with those brown cables first. I'll pull those out of the connector blocks and leave the two brown cables loose for now. I then just need to disconnect the earths, the neutrals and the permanent lives from their connector blocks as well. So you should end up with all four conductors inside each cable disconnected. So those two wall thermostats are now disconnected. We don't need to worry about those cables anymore. Now I'm just going to pop those wires back in the hole just in case in the future if the guy that owns the house moves, he can always take his smart system with him and he could reinstate the old thermostats. So we can now fill the holes where the old wall stats went, and that way we can either put the new stats in that position or we can just have them on stands. So now we've disconnected those two bottom cables, I've just put them in there for now. So there's not much left and we can now concentrate on wiring up our new back plate and our new hub. When we talk about wiring a hub up, we actually wire up this. This is an industry standard back plate, so we actually don't connect the cables to this. This clips on later. Your system might be different. You might find yourself in a situation where you've got a programmer, a digital programmer, a bit like what we now saw on the walls. You might have one of them near your wiring center. You might be able to pop that off, and you might find one of these underneath because this is industry standard. There's a lot of situations where your existing system will already have one of these in place. And if that is the case, you'll have no wiring changes to make. You'll be able to pop your hub straight on, you'll be able to clip it on, and you'll be able to avoid doing any wiring at all. But we don't have that, so we're going to need to mount our hub on the wall somewhere near our wiring center because we don't have that existing programmer in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the new hub just above the wiring center. That way I'll be able to put a cable through the back of the wiring center, and as this is a stud wall, I'll be able to just bring the cable out into the back of the new hub. So I marked the position for the new hub and then just used my multi-tool to cut a small piece of plasterboard out from the wall. That way I can feed my cables through, and I'm using two pieces of 4-core cable. So I've just cut that little hole and I've fed a couple of bits of cable up to where that new hub is going to go. Because it's a stud wall, that's nice and easy. We need those cables to extend some of these and to take the feeds to the new hub. I then strip back each cable to expose the 4 conductors in each one. So let's look at how we wire this up. We need to take these 2 brown wires up to our new hub. So what we need to do is connect them to a couple of pieces of cable to take it up to that location. These cables that we're putting in are just extensions. All we need to do is extend these to the new plate. And on our back plate, they're going to go in terminal numbers 1 and 3. Terminal 2 is for hot water. In our case, we don't need that, so we leave terminal 2 alone. We also don't want to put a cable in terminal 4. That remains free as well. And that only leaves live, neutral and earth. So we're just going to extend the neutral, the live and the earth up to our new plate through one of these cables. So starting with those 2 extension wires for the 2 light brown cables that go down to our valves, we're extending those, so strip them back, double them over and put them in the connector blocks. Next up into the connector blocks is the 2 neutrals, the new neutral going up to the hub and the one that goes to the switch. After that we've got the lives as well, so we're going to pop those into the connector block. And the last cables to connect in are the earths, so I sleeve each earth and then pop that in the connector block and tighten them up. Now I've extended them cables, I can think about mounting my back plate. I'll just cut these cables because of course at the moment they're too long. Now I'm just using a little torpedo level. All the handy tools for this job will be linked in the description, and I make a couple of marks for my fixings. I'm then just using some plasterboard fixings. These are self-drilling fixings to mount the plate to the wall. Now we've got our back plate on, we can wire it up and then we'll be able to get the hub on. Starting with the earths, I connect them into the earth terminal on the back plate. And then working from left to right, we've got the neutral going into the neutral terminal. the live going into the live terminal, and our switch wires for those heat and valves going into terminals 1 and 3. Now we can just connect our hub, just like that. Once your hub is on, there's a couple of little screws under there, and just because of where I'll put this, they're quite fiddly to get to. I can just about do them up. So I'm just going to tighten them up, and that's the hub installed. And we'll be able to turn this thing on, set it up, and I'll show you how it works. And you can see the hub's come on. Our setup light has gone green. Everything's working. Our boiler's come on. All we've got to do now, download the app, then we can set up the system with the wall stats, and we're going to install the thermostatic radiator valves so that we can control each room. But before I do that, if you're not a subscriber, hit subscribe because you don't want to miss out on future videos, and hit like if this video is helping you so that it can reach and help more people. So the setup's really simple. We need to press the setup button just once. I'm just going to press setup, and that's going to flash. Setting up the hub's pretty easy. There's a lot of little steps to go through, but the app just prompts you so you can move through those steps fairly quickly. And then we're going to just connect the hub to the home Wi-Fi network. So now we're at the stage where we can start to add some devices. First thing we're going to do is add the room thermostats. Should be nice and simple. Click on room thermostat, put the batteries in, and then there we go. Straight away. Easy as that. Connected. And on our devices list we can see that as our upstairs thermostat. So do you want this one on the wall or?
Not on the wall, no.
Okay, cool. So we can just pop this one on its little stand, and you can just pop that on the side or put it on the wall to cover up the old thermostat wiring and all that kind of stuff later on. But for now, pop on the stand. That's one of them done. So the controls for the upstairs and downstairs heating are now fully operational, and I'll show you how we use the app once we've got our radiator valves installed. And they're nice and easy to install. We can swap over a standard thermostatic radiator valve to one of these in just a couple of minutes. Let's go and do one. So select radiator thermostat. All we do for these, we just pop the little cover off, install the batteries, pop the little cover back on. It's going to flash once you get the batteries in. Twist the cap to the plus direction, and it's going to flash green. The device is then going to join to the system, and now what we need to do is fit this onto the radiator. Start by unscrewing the collar and lifting away your standard TRV. Once your existing radiator valve's off, all we're going to do is fit the adapter. The way I like to do this, pop the little black piece into that collar, and then all we're going to do is screw that onto the valve. Tighten that up, not too tight, just nip it up, and then we can pop that onto the radiator. Make sure it's facing the correct way, and you can then just tighten up the little collar. And we need to let the app know what room we want to control with the valve. Now we're just going to turn to the minus mark, and you can hear that little vibrating. That's calibrating the valve. Now the lights have gone out, that's the valve installed and ready to use. I'm now going to repeat that for every single room in the property. That way we can control each room independently, and that gives us the maximum flexibility through the app. Now that is all installed. No more wiring or installation needed. Now we're going to move over to the app. We've got all our devices on there, and we're now going to have a look at how we use them, how we use some of these little smart features to save money. So having set up a few smart systems in the past, I've done all the big three. I would say this is one of the easiest to set up, even on a slightly more complex wiring center like that one. It'd be even easier if you've just got the industry standard backplate. The app's really easy to add all the rooms and devices, and then once you start playing around with some of the automations, it gets even smarter. Of course, by having total smart control remotely when you're out and about, you can turn the heating off when you're out so that you're not spending money when you don't need to be. So it's going to save you money. You could just use the remote functionality to turn on the heating 10 minutes before you get home, so it's nice and toasty when you walk through the door. The other main benefit to the system is the eco mode. So if we go into smart modes, we can turn eco mode on, and that's going to maximize the efficiency of the system and automatically turn the heating on and off when the weather changes or the home heats up and cools down. So it's a system that I wouldn't hesitate to have in my own home. I'd only ever show you guys products that I would use myself. I hope you guys like it as much as I do. I'll pop a link to the system down in the description if you guys want to grab a smart system for your home. Drayton have given me a discount for this, 40% off just for you guys if you use the code WISERDIY. So it's absolutely boiling in this house now. I am sweating with all this heating on. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. There's loads more to learn on heating, so check out one of these videos and I'll see you guys in the next one.